Ways and Means, hello. I feel like it's been years since we were last gathered here. Good morning. We have 3 committees of conference that are going strong. I believe Representative Kimball is in the 127 committee of conference right now. 454 is meeting throughout the day. I know you all are watching that here. And 51 is going to meet tomorrow morning, probably. We have 4 bills to go through in fairly rapid succession. They are 6, whatever. They are each offers of amendment from the Senate. We've already voted out all of them before the big picture. Just going to look at the tweaks this morning. Some more minor than others. So with that, Tucker, do you want to join us?
Good morning, Tucker Anderson, Legislative Council. Great to see you all. You should have in front of you the Senate proposal of amendment for H 397, which I will also share since you're such a sharing committee. There we are. I'll quickly walk you through the changes that the Senate made to some of the money related sections of the bill. Note where nothing has changed and note a few additions. So we'll start in section 3. This amends 20 VSA section 48, which is the Community Resilience and Disaster Mitigation Grant Program. And the only thing that I need to note here is that as passed the House, you had stood up a new section in Title 20 that created a standalone voluntary buyout program. The Senate, after taking testimony on that, removed that standalone program and instead added voluntary buyouts for flood impacted or flood prone properties as a use of the grant funds in the CRDMGP. Okay. I saw many nods of the head, so I'll quickly move through section 6 and 7. The Senate did not change the work that you all did with unassigned fund balances for municipalities or emergency borrowing. However, your committee did amend the government operations report for purposes of the as passed by House version to remove level debt servicing. That section has been added back in by Senate government operations. Are there any questions?
Representative Maslin.
Yeah, briefly, if you need to tell us more about level debt servicing.
It allows legislative bodies
Yeah.
to choose a repayment model with static payment amounts over time. Instead of paying, Ted showed you the chart where it ramps up quickly and a lot of the interest is paid upfront.
More like,
And then you get declaration over time.
sorry, more like a conventional mortgage.
Yes.
Thank you. Got it.
We took it out because we didn't have time to think about it last time. And I personally have sort of thought about it in the back of my head since then. I don't know if anyone else has.
I have.
I'm gonna move on.
I
Great.
like it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I never stopped ruminating on it. It was with me the whole session.
Wonder why.
Section 10, once upon a time was the extension of the flood abatement program. That passed in another bill, so it's been taken out.
Thanks.
They did not touch the local option tax proposals from this committee. It is still 75-25 in section 11, so no changes there. Which brings us to the only addition that I need to note for you. Section 21 of the Senate proposal of amendment reimburses 2 municipalities for overpayments to the Ed Fund. And that's the city of Barry and the town of Milton.
We did discuss that a very long time ago. Okay, great.
There you go. That's all. Section 22 extends the city of Barry TIF by 2 years, specifically the authority to incur indebtedness for purposes of the district to 2028.
Representative Elizabeth.
Which just for the committee's context is relevant to the flood bill in that the city of Barry has a housing development in Down Street that we're working on, right downtown Barry, which will be 32 units of affordable housing, and it is purposely being built using flood resilient technologies. But Down Street needs the various developers and players need that 2-year extension for that. But that's why it's relevant to the flood bill, because it's for flood resilient housing in a floodplain prone area.
I thought they were using the TIF for that project.
Yeah, that's what this is, yes, yes.
And that's why the TIF needs more time.
Yes.
I see.
That's all, unless the committee has any questions.
None, thank you so much. And if we don't see you again, very much thank you for all of your help this year.
Thank you so much for having me so frequently this session. I look forward to coming back.
Hi, Tucker. Chris,
Uh,
you're welcome to go wherever you want, depending on how many words you have. Okay.
It's on our.
Chris from Joint Fiscal, I have very little to add to what Tucker gave an excellent overview. The updated fiscal note is posted on the committee page. The only thing I wanted to mention was that there were 2 things I wanted to mention. One was that the local option tax shift would take effect October 1 at the request of the tax department. And the other thing is that I just wanted to reiterate that the reimbursement to Barry and Milton for the TIF overpayment issue is net neutral to the ed fund. The general fund is actually transferring the amount of money to the ed fund. The ed fund then basically cuts a check to tax to send the money out to the towns. The reason why it was constructed that way was because the yields were calculated without factoring this in. So I just want to make sure this committee is aware that this is accounting mechanics. This is not an additional cost to the ed fund.
Thank you. Any questions for Chris? Seeing none, let's do a straw poll. All in favor of concurring? All opposed?
I see a straw poll of 803
Thank you.
in favor of conference.
Representative Wozniak. 803.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. That's yours.
Yes, yeah, that's
Okay,
mine, yeah.
great. Onwards, 484, Michael O'Grady.
It's on our page too.
Oh, it is
I
now,
have to
okay.
refresh.
Thank you, Sorry.
We're doing a slightly funny thing in that we are hearing this bill before the Agriculture Committee does, because such was scheduling, and so we're all just gonna have to work with that slightly awkward scenario.
So this is Mike O'Grady. When 484 left the House, it was the miscellaneous agricultural subjects bill, and it only dealt with conforming the state's regulation of beneficial substances, plant amendments, plant stimulants, soil amendments, soil stimulants, soil inoculants, with the uniform standard that had been adopted in 2024. The Senate Agriculture Committee added several sections to it. And then on the floor, Senator Watson moved to include multiple provisions from H 319, which you saw pass the House, to H 484. So the bill expanded from about 24 pages to about 70 pages. And instead of walking through all of the text that has changed, I put together this kind of overview side by side. And I'll try to move quickly. Section 1 is the same as what passed the House, the beneficial substances. It does have the registration requirements in it, but as James will probably tell you, they're de minimis and there's no proposed revenue impact. Section 2 is new. The Agency of Agriculture actually has a statutory duty to use the pesticide registration fund for the collection and disposition of unwanted or obsolete pesticides. They basically work with the solid waste management entities to manage those unwanted or obsolete products the solid waste management entities don't think they are being fairly compensated. The agency, the industry, the solid waste management entities all met to try to address the issue. They are proposing to add a $50 per product annual fee to the state's pesticide registration fee. And to stop there, every pesticide product that's sold in the state must annually register for that product. Right now it's $200, most of it going to the pesticide registration fund, special fund, some going to the Ag Water Quality Fund. This would add $50 to that. That puts Vermont not as an outlier. There are states in New England that are more expensive. There are states in New England that are less expensive. That $50 would go into the special fund and be used for the collection and disposition of unwanted pesticides. During the interim, there's also going to be the Agency of Ag in consultation with DEC shall study options for a sustainable funding model to reimburse the solid waste management entities for the cost of collection of those unwanted pesticides. And they report back to you December 15, 2025. One of the things that they will be looking at is an extended producer responsibility program for these waste pesticides. So that's a revenue impactful two sections. Section 4 looks like a revenue impactful section. It will require the Rutland State Fair to get the 3-acre permit, but instead of having to perform.
Sorry. When you were talking about the fees to me before we started, you told me that there was a bunch of people who all got together and agreed on those. Can you say that again?
The people that agreed on the Agency of Agriculture, their pesticide division, industry.
Industry.
And the solid waste management entities.
Okay, thank you.
So those with the most vested interest in.
Appreciate it.
The state fair is subject to the 3-acre permit. A&R had worked with some of the other ag fairs to get them money to come into compliance with the 3-acre permit, and they are doing so. But Rutland has unique site constraints. There's a railroad on one side, a swamp on another side, a state highway on another side, and development on the other side. And they can't do a lot of what the other state fairs can do because those state fairs have land that they can work with.
Imagine you like this.
So A&R went down to the Rutland site and to assess those site constraints and basically said, fine, we understand your constraints and we're going to still require you to get the 3-acre permit, but you have to do everything that you can do on site under an engineering feasibility analysis. And what you cannot do, we're going to relieve you of. So they won't have to pay a stormwater impact fee. They won't have to do an offset project in the watershed. Stormwater impact fees are not revenue generators. It's something that A&R uses to do projects in the watershed to meet the goal that a person cannot meet through their implementation of the stormwater management manual. It's a fee, but it's not.
More of a fine than a fee.
Right.
Okay.
Section 5 would change the eligibility requirements for agricultural land of up to 25 acres. As I believe all of you know, a person can qualify for use value if they have 25 acres or less, but are making $2,000 in income in 1 of 2 or 3 of 5 of the previous calendar years from the sale of farm crops. But there were persons, farms who are donating their crops and not selling their crops. And they came in and asked to be eligible for use value if they have that $2,000 in 1 of 2 or 3 of 5 from the value of donated crops.
So I've heard various concerns about this provision. And we don't have time to dive into it at all. And so I've asked, Representative Durfee is going to offer an amendment to remove it in the Ag Committee.
If it's gonna be removed, I don't need to ask.
Great.
Should I move on?
Otherwise, it's very problematic.
Yes, agreed. More comfort. Is that okay with everyone? Great. Okay, we will talk about it next year.
Section 6 has no revenue impact. It's a very technical amendment about retroactively restoring the heavy cut rule because they failed to properly file it with the Secretary of State.
Great.
Section 7, it moves the covered household hazardous products changes that have been in 319 into H484. So do sections 8 through 13. There's nothing changes regarding the revenue here. However, the agency does have the ability under this program, which you gave them in H319 as it passed the House, to, if the manufacturers aren't implementing or proposing an acceptable plan, the agency can assess their own plan, assess the cost of the manufacturers plus a 10% penalty. That is unchanged from what passed with H319.
Thank you.
The paint product stewardship program, there were changes to its scope, but pardon?
Which section?
Sections 14 and 15, paint product stewardship. One of the things that those changes scope is to clarify that products like paint thinner and industrial paint, et cetera, are not going to be in the covered household hazardous products EPR, that they're going to be in the paint EPR. So there are definitions of those products that are added, and the default term of architectural paint is changed to paint products, and that's a significant part of the changes in sections 14 and 15. With regard to your committee, what is significant is that the current paint assessment, because when you go and buy architectural paint, exterior, interior coatings for your house or other structure, you pay a fee at the time you purchase that product. And it is used to pay for the paint product stewardship program. But the fee is determined by the stewardship organization proposing that fee to A&R and A&R approving it. A&R wants to get out of the business of approving these fees. They want the fees to be set as they traditionally are by you, the General Assembly. And so that is what section 14
That's our favorite. That's great.
does.
Oh, delightful. Thank you.
Section 15 requires the agency to report back to you in December with a proposed fee for all those new products. So the fees for architectural paint remain the same, but they're now in statute. And then you will be able to set what the fees are going to be for the other paint products.
Thanks.
Section 16 is Rygate extension of their timeline to do that efficiency project that they're required to do. And then section 17 are the effective dates.
Thank you so much. Any further questions for Michael? Seeing none. James, hello. Thanks for joining us.
I do have to,
Farwell, you have. Very well. Is that your piece of paper?
no, it is not.
Okay. You're welcome to move that piece of paper wherever you would like.
Morning.
Good morning.
For the record, James Duffy, Joint Fiscal Office. Not a whole lot to add to what Mike just walked the committee through. Several of the provisions of this bill, as it has been sent to this committee from the Senate, are provisions that this committee has seen before in H319, the Miscellaneous Environmental Subjects Bill. So those provisions are the provisions pertaining to the Household Hazardous Waste Collection Plans, ANR, which is section 11 of the bill as sent by the Senate, and section 14, the Paint Product Stewardship Program, and the implementation and fee report for the paint stewardship program in section 15. Chairwoman Heiser, would you like an overview of the fiscal impacts of those provisions that they have? Okay, I'll take it from the top then.
Do people want that?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Great. So in that case, I'll just run through the fiscal components of the bill from the Senate in numerical order. So section 1 of the bill would establish registration requirements for beneficial agricultural substances. This is new to this committee and kind of original to H484. And so Ways and Means is seeing this for the first time. This would direct the Agency of Agriculture and Food Markets, to establish a new category of product registration for what are beneficial agricultural substances. These are not quite fertilizers, but these are things like biostimulants, like fungal substances that might stimulate plant growth but are not properly considered to be fertilizers, and would require that these be registered under an existing registration system in which fertilizers and pesticides are registered annually with an $85 fee.
First, I don't see this fiscal one.
This fiscal hasn't yet been updated since,
okay.
or posted rather, since we're waiting on the
Sorry about
Senate
that.
proposal amendment to be
Okay.
posted. These beneficial substances are largely already being registered.
I think we've discussed them before.
Okay, so these are already registered and already, paying $85 annual fees to the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. This would really just create a new category for products that are already being registered, and so is expected to have a de minimis fiscal impact in terms of additional revenues, fee revenues. Sections 2 and 3 of the bill would create a new fee for the registration of pesticides in the state. So pesticides in Vermont already have to be registered annually with a $200 fee paid by the registrant. That $200 fee is split between the Pesticide Monitoring Special Fund and the Agricultural Water Quality Special Fund, with $185 of that fee going to the Pesticide Monitoring Special Fund and $15 deposited to the Ag Water Quality Special Fund. What this bill would do, sections 2 and 3 of H44 would do, are create an additional $50 fee beyond that $200 existing fee, which would be charged to those very same registrants. So it's the same universe of fee payers. And the entirety of that $50 fee would be deposited to the Pesticide Monitoring Special Fund. This fee would be used to generate additional revenue for AFM's support of the cost of pesticide disposal by the solid waste management districts. You heard Michael mention earlier that there have been issues within the solid waste management districts regarding insufficient cost recovery for the costs they incur in disposing of unwanted or obsolete pesticides. This bill would create a new $50 fee to cover AFM's support of those costs while the agency studies other revenue raising mechanisms to fund this work. So section 2 establishes that new fee. JFO has looked at the universe of fee payers who pay the existing $200 fee and estimate that this would generate around $600,000 annually for the Pesticide Monitoring Special Fund to support the disposal of obsolete pesticides.
Thank you.
And section 3 would then direct the Secretary of Agriculture, Food and Markets in consultation with the Commissioner of DEC to study other sustainable funding sources for the reimbursement of solid waste management districts for those costs. And that report would be submitted to the committee's jurisdiction by December 15th of 2025. Any questions on that provision of the bill? No. Great. Section 5, Madam Chair, you just pointed out, is set to be removed from the bill in House Agriculture today. But section 5 of the bill, as sent to you by the Senate, would expand the use value appraisal program eligibility for agricultural land enrollment in UVA. Currently, one of the criterion used to qualify agricultural land for use value appraisal is the dollar value of gross annual produce sales in combination with parcel size. So for example, if you're a parcel between 0 and 25 acres who sold $2,000 in agricultural crops in one of the previous 2 or 2 of the previous 3 years, your parcel can qualify for UVA enrollment. What section 5 of this bill would do is say, not only can you use the sale of agricultural products above a certain threshold to qualify for this program, but also the equivalent value of donated agricultural produce can be used to qualify your parcel for UVA enrollment. So if I'm somebody who can produce $2,000 worth of donated crops on my parcel of 0 to 25 acres in a given year, I would be able to use the value of those donations to qualify for UVA eligibility. The overall effect of this provision would be to increase the scope of eligible properties for UVA enrollment. Data to estimate the scope of that expansion is hard to come by. It really depends on the value of donated crops produced by a parcel. And
that's why we're going to look into it
next year. Great, thank you. I will leave it at that for now.
Thank you.
Bottom line is it would be for more foregone revenue to the ed fund to the extent it expands eligibility. Then sections 11, 14, and 15 of the bill as sent to you by the Senate have been added to 484 from H319 and so have been through Ways and Means already, but I will discuss them briefly. Section 11 deals with the household hazardous waste collection program. There are new requirements for the household hazardous waste collection program set to go into effect. What this provision would do is say if manufacturers fail to comply with these new provisions by July 1st, 2025, ANR is authorized to perform those requirements on those manufacturers' behalf and charge them up to 10% of the cost of meeting those requirements, of establishing those product collection plans. In speaking with the agency about this provision, they expect full manufacturer compliance by the new deadline and therefore don't expect this provision to be triggered and therefore are not expecting a fiscal impact to state revenues. Should a manufacturer be assessed this fee by the agency, they estimate that it could be in the range of $500,000 to $700,000, representing 10% of the cost of implementing this new plan. But again, the agency isn't expecting this provision to be triggered. There's a de minimis fiscal impact expected. And then finally, sections 14 and 15 of the bill deal with the paint product stewardship program. These sections are expanding what is currently known as the paint stewardship program to be the paint product stewardship program. So it extends the requirements of the program, not just to architectural paint, but also to things like paint thinners, stains, paint strippers, paint related products. And so by the given date in the bill, producers of those products would be required to enroll in a stewardship organization to provide disposal of those products in an environmentally responsible manner, free of charge to the people disposing of those products. The other provision of this section, section 14, is to codify existing fees imposed on the sale of architectural paint to cover the cost of their disposal in statute. Currently, the way this works is manufacturers propose a fee that is sufficient, a fee schedule that is sufficient to cover their costs in disposing of these products to the Secretary of Natural Resources. The Secretary of Natural Resources then has the authority to approve that fee. This bill would situate that fee in statute with the General Assembly, similar to how other fees are handled. So that authority would now rest with all of you instead of with the agency. And I should note as well that beyond that de minimis fiscal impact, which is just codifying existing fees in statute, the application of new requirements to paint-related products is expected to generate about an estimated $60,000 in additional sales tax revenue once those provisions go into effect. That represents less than 1% of typical sales tax revenue in recent years, but that additional fee charged on those products is part of the taxable sales price of those products, and so would marginally increase the sales tax collected on each of those sales.
What is the 60,000? What percentage of that? What?
So that 60,000 is an estimate of the additional sales tax. And so that would represent the 6% sales tax on the fee that would be newly charged.
And this will be in the fiscal notes, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. And then section 15 would direct the Secretary of Natural Resources to file a fee report with the General Assembly with the committee's jurisdiction by December 15th of 2025 in advance of these new paint product requirements. By December 15th, the agency would have to propose to the legislature a fee schedule for these newly included paint products that I mentioned, paint thinners. Any questions?
You didn't mention Rutland Fair because
Yes, the Rutland Fair exemption from stormwater impact fees and project offset requirements doesn't have a fiscal impact to the state per se, because that money is deposited into a special fund that is then used to fund restoration projects, pollution abatement projects within the designated sub-watershed. And so any money that would have been collected from the state fair in Rutland through the stormwater impact fee would then have been used for that dedicated purpose of restoration projects in that sub-watershed. So as the chair pointed out earlier, it's really more akin to a fine in that sense, or a penalty, than say a permit operating fee, which is revenue the state can expect to receive every year on an ongoing basis. I should also note that while the state fair will be exempt from the stormwater impact fee and project offset requirements under the 3-acre stormwater permit, they will still be required to have a permit and pay associated annual operating fees with a stormwater permit. And so the agency is expecting fiscal impacts from a wholesale permit exemption for the Rutland State Fair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
I will have that fiscal note posted and shared with the committee just as soon as the Senate proposal amendment is posted online.
Okay, great. Folks, are you comfortable straw polling, assuming that Durfee is going to do, Representative Durfee will do this amendment?
I'd rather wait until we have the amendment.
We're not ever gonna see
Okay.
the amendment.
Depends on that.
You can not vote. You can vote yes, or you can vote no.
I know that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So we're not seeing it at all. Why do we need to vote?
It will, the,
Reporter of the House, basically.
so the overall bill is gonna go back to the floor, is living on the floor. It's on the calendar right now. Representative Durfee's gonna offer an amendment to just remove that one section.
I see.
And this is the time we have now to meet because of that committee had to be on the floor at 10. And so I think it's gonna be on notice, it's gonna be up for action this afternoon. And so we're straw polling. Speaker might not even call for a straw poll on this, but we're straw polling so that we can offer that when we can. Yes.
Do we even have to speak on the floor about this? Yes.
I
think Mark.
probably, yes.
It was Mass, it was Jeff. It was.
Thank you. So if we could all have a straw poll, those in favor of this as amended, though I understand that you might not be able to trust that it will be amended. I would offer that if Representative Durfee does not offer the amendment, I am happy to offer the amendment myself. We just thought it made more sense for him to do it. So all those in favor of seeing the bill proceed? Those opposed?
See a straw poll of 6-1-0.
6-1.
Oh, 6-1-3.
6-1-4.
4, 6-1-5-1-4? Nope, let's all count.
Let's all kind of get 1, 2, 3, 4.
6-1-4.
There are 6-1. Yes.
Great, thank you. 6-1-4. Representative Odie, can
Yeah.
you report this if we need a reporter? Thank you.
When will I know whether we need?
On the floor, probably at that moment.
No problem.
Great, thank you.
You're
No, I do not see Katie, so Kirby.
Tim is.
Tim,
You can see me.
hello, Tim. Good morning.
Thank you very much for having me, Chair Quinn.
Thank you so much for being here.
For the record, Tim Devlin, Legislative Counsel. And I presume we're moving on to H 472, the
Sure seems that way.
OPR bill. So the committee has, let's see, there's 3 different amendments, one coming over from the Senate, which is a strike all. There is, I'll just maybe start with very broad strokes. That essentially added some licensing provisions and structure and some positions for early childhood educators. And then a few other kind of minor adjustments to what came out of the House. The second amendment, which is brought proffered by various members of the House Government Operations Committee, moves to remove those licensure provisions for early childhood educators, as well as adjust one of the positions from exempt to classified that remains in there. And then the third
And then,
amendment,
folks, those were not in the budget as passed. And so that's why they were removed.
the third amendment has to do with essentially creating a report back for the Secretary of State to provide details as to revenues generated through what is in essence the sale of data by by subscription or other contractual basis. And that would go to this committee, House Energy and Digital Infrastructure, GovOps, and then Senate equivalents as well. And again, they would have to provide written detail on revenues generated, as well as categories of data sold.
So when the bill left us, we were giving permission to charge a fee for a limited amount of data sharing. And when it as it's come back, that's still in there, but we have, no.